Hey everyone. Okay, so the last sessions is still wrapping up. So let's wait 1 minute.
Okay, no problem.
I see people are joining now. I think it's like just 2 minutes to finish the previous session. Okay, so we started again. Now I see people are joining. We finished the previous session. If anyone was in the previous session and can send in the chat that yes, you were in the previous session and it's over, please let us know so we can start, because I know it took like. Okay, perfect. So let's start the session. Welcome everyone. So this is the second session of day 2. As we mentioned in the previous session, we're talking today about innovation, and I'm going to start with Well, welcome everyone to the session of navigating the climate change megatrend, how companies transform now to meet the future. So we were just in this big session about like all megatrends, how everything is shaping the future, but also the present, not just for us, but for our businesses. And now the idea is that we can deep dive a little bit in the climate change megatrend. As we saw in the previous session as well, this was one of the biggest things that everyone was mentioning when you're asked of like what are the things that you see shaping not just the future but now for businesses and for our lives. So that's why we decided to have this conversation today about the megatrend of climate change, specifically focusing in this session. So for this conversation, I'm not going to be alone. So it's going to be a conversation of two Luises. And I have here with us in our agenda a great conversation with Luis Silimingras about the climate area, the usage of design for scaling climate solutions, and how we can ensure that those are widely adopted and impactful across industries, what climate change adaptation means in the business world, the integration of sustainability and profitability in the business, and more. And we welcome you, of course, to bring your questions to Luis. So this is actually a conversation. Luis is going to bring us some things from his side, but the idea is that you can ask questions and we have a nice conversation. So to introduce Luis, I have written some stuff here to bring to you. But Luis, he's the partner and global head of climate and sustainability at IDEO. So Luis is an engineer, designer, entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience at the intersection of sustainability, innovation, and technology. And something that he brought when we were talking that I think was really interesting is this quote of the climate crisis paired with potential of AI will reshape business more profoundly in the next decade than the internet has in the last 20 years. And that's something that like relates to the conversation that we were having before about general megatrends. So this perspective has shaped his work, helping organizations to scale sustainable solutions that people desire, accelerating the transition to a regenerative net zero future. And as a partner managing director at IDEO, Luis led the foundation of the climate and sustainability practice, integrating human-centered innovation to sustainability strategy across sectors. So that brings us to the conversation of today. So welcome, Luis. I'm gonna pass to you the mic in a second. But to start this conversation and to pass the mic to you, I'm going to already bring like some questions for you to introduce yourself. But it would be nice if you can tell us a little bit of who you are and what IDEO is for those who don't know it. But also this session is about how companies, they transform now to meet the future, as we said in the beginning, which is not that far. The future is already now. We see that climate change is already disrupting and it's already affecting a lot of people. So how business can prepare to navigate this climate change megatrend? And I know in IDEO, you have this concept that you use of climate era, and I know you have prepared some slides for us to show us a little bit of what that means. But it would be nice if in this introduction you can also bring to us a little bit of what that means, and what it means to bring the climate and sustainability practice to IDEO as the person that is heading this climate and sustainability idea at IDEO. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I pass it over to you.
Thank you, Luis, and hello, everybody. It's a great day here in Berlin, and obviously we woke up to news that were not so exciting from a point of view of climate, from so many points of view. I imagine you're all a bit shocked by the news this morning. Certainly I am. And I just want to acknowledge that a little bit, because it's hard enough to work sometimes on climate, and now having more headwinds is even tougher. But what we do is important, so it's not gonna make us stop by any means. So a little bit, I prepared a few slides to introduce myself and to introduce IDEO and this concept of the climate era. So if that's okay, we're just gonna kind of go through them, if that sounds good. Any questions, please? I don't love speaking to just the infinite. So anything, please let me know. I'm very happy to engage in a conversation. So can you see my screen?
Yes, now yes.
Yes. So I was very excited to see that this. I mean, I've known the Impact Hub for a long time, and I love the fact that this is the Makers Festival. So I very much identify with being a maker. So I salute you, fellow makers. As you said, I'm an engineer. I've worked at IDEO for 14 years, 7 of them as a partner, an MD. I've founded the climate and sustainability practice. And and part of my job as well is, like, as a part of the things I do, I founded a small startup called Sundoc, and this is the last thing we've done. We've created a prototype of a solar powered kind of battery charging station for electric boats. I'm from an island in Spain called Mallorca, and navigation and the seas are very important to us. So that's kind of the last thing I've been making. This is just to give you a sense of the things I like to do. I like to kind of work on projects that combine people, technology, sustainability. That's kind of where my happiness is. And in this very much kind of tough climate that we are going to be going into, staying close to making is very, very important. And that's very much at the center of what IDEO does. This is something that, this is actually the line IDEO uses to define itself. For 40 years, 45 years, IDEO has been making the future. Making is very much at the center of what IDEO does. Coming from a background of engineering and design. 40 years ago, the very early kind of days of IDEO, one of the founders of IDEO designed the first laptop, the first screen that folded on top of a keyboard. The other founder worked with Steve Jobs to create the first commercial mouse. And IDEO created like the first insulin pen, the best selling defibrillator in the world, incredibly easy to use, which is what you need when you have a heart attack. The Palm Pilot, which was basically the interface that pioneered then all the smartphones. IDEO very much designed with industrial design things that you could be holding in your hand, that were very, very tangible. That would make a noise if they would fall on the floor. Today, IDEO does a lot more. Basically, we've taken these the design principles. We can call them design thinking or human-centric design, of how you go on to design things very much with people at your heart, and then starting to kind of use that approach to very much all the possible problems in the world, because there is very few problems that don't have an emotional component. The work we do today, for example, is like we've designed an education system, a network of schools. We started in Peru, and we've taken it to the whole of Latin America. It's the biggest affordable private network of schools in the continent. We're working with Moderna, the vaccine maker, to help them grow with their kind of just keeping their culture and just very much kind of supporting their hyper growth. And this is work that we're very proud of. We've helped, we've designed the new F-150 Lightning, the best selling truck in America, the electric version of it, which is an incredible vehicle. And we've been working very much on the circular space, for example. These are some examples of what we do. We've been partnering with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I've been working with them for the last 9 years to bring very much design at the heart of circularity. We help with design. We released the first circular design guide. Maybe some of you have seen it or downloaded. It's been downloaded 2 million times. And very recently, we also kind of worked with the Earthshot Award. You see Prince William here, which is, so we help design and run that program too. So a very broad kind of set of work that we do across many industries. But very much what brings us here is that we see that we are entering this new era, what we call the climate era. And it's this kind of shrinking window of time when the awareness we have of climate change, very much of a full scientific understanding and awareness we have, and our tangible experience of it, is still matched by our ability to act and prevent some of the worst consequences of that. It's a moment where there's no excuses anymore. This is what we call the climate era at IDEO. And very much we build on the fact that there was an industrial era that was that run for a while and basically built our economies, lifted billions of people out of poverty, and shaped the world that we're in today, but created an economy and a society that's incredibly dependent on fossil fuels. Then we probably moved into the digital era around 30, 40 years ago, very much accelerated by the internet in the last kind of 20, that profoundly changed the way we learn. I mean, the fact that we are having this meeting today this way is a testament of that. The way we relate with each other, we created new processes, new cultures, new business models that were totally impossible before the internet. But also created a fixation or almost like a drive for the short term of humans, like exploiting instant gratification and an incredible amount of waste that has come with that kind of drive towards that. So those are the kind of the dark sides of these kind of incredibly powerful eras of driving humanity. And now we believe we are going into this climate era where we need to reverse the impacts of the previous eras. We need to keep what make them amazing, like the ability to scale, the ability of serving millions and billions of people, but try and start kind of removing, making that economy be independent from resource extraction, from fossil fuels, and start making it much more fair for the communities that basically host that economy, that society. So similar to the previous eras, everything is going to be impacted. Every single side of our world, and everything must be redesigned. This is what is incredibly interesting from a design point of view, because there's a huge potential for our generation. I mean, for our generation to be the generation that redesigns the economy around us. If you think about it, we need to obviously redesign energy generation. That's pretty well understood, but we need to also rethink transportation, food and agriculture, financial services, retail and e-commerce, supply and logistics. We need to rethink packaging. We need to rethink air travel, construction, tourism, fashion, workplaces. So many different parts. It is the biggest design brief that we ever got. And I mean, we are very good friends with the people from Project Drawdown, and if you look at their repository of solutions, in order to avert, especially in the next decade, the worst consequences of climate change, we have already those solutions. They exist, right? I mean, like, we can start leveraging them, and we can start kind of leaning on them in order to kind of solve our problems. But still, the trajectory that we're in is one that is going to have a massive consequence. I mean, like, I was in Spain last week, and we've lived this horrible tragedy of what's happened in Valencia. We are seeing it every day, and we're still struggling to kind of make progress. Let's see what happens in Baku at COP29 next week starting, but the momentum of change is definitely different from the change that we need. So what's going on? I mean, like, we know the problem. Why are we not able to act faster, right? And one of the reasons is because we are human, and it's important to embrace humanity as part of understanding this problem, because, I mean, this is me, a recovering engineer, become a designer. Accepting the imperfection of humans is a very important part of the journey to kind of understand how to design better solutions for people. We are human. Humans are messy. It's not easy to understand what motivates us. It's not easy to kind of move us in the right direction, or all in the same direction, or define what the right direction is. And there's billions of us, right? So it's incredibly complex from a perspective of how to create a movement that in just a generation is able to kind of turn such a big problem around. So how can we get messy humans to adopt climate solutions faster? That is the question that we very much think about at IDEO. And this is because we think that that's the question that designers should be embracing. I mean, you think about, just an example, you think about the Toyota, the Prius, incredible car, one car of the year. It was the first hybrid that really made sense. It had an incredible success. People were going to the Oscars with the Prius around 2005 or something. And then you see the Tesla 3Y. I mean, it's a good day for Musk probably today, but you cannot take away from the fact that the Tesla 3 is an incredible car. And you see their sales over time, as much as Prius had an incredible impact, but look at how it moved, the kind of sales that it created after it was launched, and look at the sales from Tesla. Tesla is a much more desirable car. Is a car that just is not just great for it's not just a electric vehicle that's great for the environment, but it's also much more desirable as a product. So it's not enough for a climate solution to be a responsible option, and it's not enough for a climate strategy to be just a responsible option. It needs to be desirable for the leaders. It needs to be desirable for the people that are driving it. It needs to raise our emotions while we do that. And that's the best way of doing it across the board. I mean, similar to the computers in the 80s, this is the way they used to look like, computers in the late 80s, early 90s. And Steve Jobs, when he came around, and we have worked a lot with Apple, he basically said, I need the designers that are designing cars today to start designing computers, because we need to make those things much more exciting. We need to take this beige out of these computers, and we start making something interesting around that. And obviously what happened with Apple, and how much Apple reshaped the whole kind of industry of computing and the internet and everything that happened. And it's still like one of the biggest companies in the world today, right? And think about how many beige solutions are today from a climate perspective. When have you seen a house that looks better with solar panels and without solar panels? When have you seen a community that's excited to have basically a windmill behind where they are? How can we start making these solutions better, more exciting, easier to use? That is the job we need to think about. Like, how can we make the experience of shopping secondhand clothes as exciting as buying something new, or make regenerative agriculture much more understandable, so people are really kind of engaging more with it and just like embracing it more. Those are some of the challenges that we need to think about as designers. And IDEO, I mean, we've been working on sustainability for a long time. We put a team together 3 years ago in order to start kind of understanding and just driving a few of the learnings across our portfolio of work. And we started creating some ideas, some kind of learnings across the board on how we can start thinking about approaching climate and climate transformation inside organizations. But before I go into maybe some of that, I'll just say hello to Luis again, because I've been speaking for a while. Maybe you have a question, and then I can go through that if it's useful.
No, that's super nice. I think thanks for bringing that in for the introduction. I think it makes more clear for everyone to understand also, like your role as IDEO, the design in this work as well. But before I go into this 3 points, I just wanted to ask, because like in the previous conversation we were having in the previous session, we're also talking about like this role of businesses on the work of mitigating adaptation. So where the companies are now like needing to focus on, if it's in the mitigation, in the adaptation. But then when you bring the topic of design, I have a question here that I just wrote down on how do you see the design field evolving in response to the climate crisis? And like this particularly meaning how you see the design helping the business not just to react to the environmental challenges, but also to contribute actively to the solutions, not just like reacting, but actually making it more of like a solution in this field.
Yeah, I mean, I'll stop sharing for a second. I think that's a very good question. I think designers have been engaging in creating better designs, better materials all their time. But I mean, when I started going to the COP conferences in Glasgow, COP26, and I started kind of going to more of these forums where sustainability issues are being kind of discussed. I realized that there was like that design was not invited, not existed in these conversations. Um, it's interesting how design has been seen as something that is useful for, it's almost like a nice tool down the line, but it's not been seen as a strategic tool for the climate conversation and the sustainability conversation. And I was just amazed. Like all consultants, management consultants, McKinsey's, all of them, they were all over this conversation, all over, And then you think the people that are able to understand users well, as we do, are able to kind of imagine solutions that are to make them tangible. They were just not invited. We're just not around, um, and you think this is a crisis of imagination. The climate crisis is a crisis of imagination. We are not able to see the world, a better world ahead of us, with enough excitement and power that makes us make the change that we need to do fast enough. So it is actually a big job for designers. But I think we need to takeaways, like it's a little bit of like art design. Is design invited to the grown-up room or the grown-up table? I don't think we have been invited to the grown-up table, or maybe we haven't earned our space in the grown-up table of the climate conversation. And we need to fight our way into it, because there is a big job for us to do there. We can really help motivate some of those conversations.
Yeah, I think that's nice. And I think like this bridges to another question that I had, and I think like that bridges to the other sides that I know that you have to share with us a little bit. But like this conversation of visioning future and how we can actually have an imagination to tackle these problems. We're going to have a conversation also like tomorrow about future visioning. We have these conversations of like methodologies that we use and how we can use that to kind of like see different scenarios, work with different futures and tackle specific problems. So just like back to using design thinking to forecast and prepare for the climate era and to thrive, to have like business thriving, but also solutions thriving. What strategies and frameworks you suggest to envision these changes? And I know like IDEO has some good ones, so it would be nice if you can share with us.
Yeah, of course, I'll share them. And just a comment from just to Alexandra's comment here. I totally agree. And Alexandra, like thinking about these conferences, going back to these conferences, and there's so little beauty on them. I mean, I was in Intersolar. I don't know if you've heard about Intersolar. This is a bit geeky. I'm getting a bit geeky here, but Intersolar is the biggest kind of solar panel kind of battery kind of exhibit in the world. It's done in Munich every year in May. And you go to this place and it's soul crunching to imagine, to think, okay, this is the industry that's going to save the planet. And it's just like, stand after stand selling products that are kind of almost like almost impossible to kind of identify what the difference is between them. Like where is design there? Like right now, climate solutions have been thinking with an engineering mindset. It's not yet a mindset that is close to the consumer and is tangible and is easy for people to kind of take on. And again, that is, I think, is the job of design.
I think that connects to like desirability as well, because it just brought like me to a moment. I was in Berlin for Christmas last year, and then a friend of mine was having a conversation with his parents about like putting the solar panels in the house, and they were like, "It's impossible. It's gonna make everything ugly. Like we can't do that." So then it's also like this desirability role that these people that are creating the solutions, they are not bringing this close
Totally.
to what is wanted, what is needed in kind of like desirable way.
Totally. And I'm Martin. I'm happy to hear that you enjoy the Earthshot Innovation Summit, because we've been part of doing that. And it's like, yes, we need to get people. I mean, maybe I'll speak about this in more detail now. Sorry, I'm getting excited. So
And also just to tell people, if anyone wants to jump in and ask questions, you can also always raise hands. We bring you to the stage, and yeah.
Please do. I'll go through this quick, and then you tell me what resonates or what doesn't, or what debates we can have. But yeah, we've been working on organizational transformation for a long time at IDEO. As very much as we saw that it was necessary. When you as a designer come up with amazing ideas, they're never going to happen if the organization that basically hosts them is not going to be ready to implement them. So change, capabilities, systems are an absolutely inextricably important part of designing new ideas. If you don't put them together, you're not going to have the impact that you need. So in that sense, the framework we use when we think about that arc of change, the way in which organizations are, the steps that they need to go through in order to kind of bring a big big transformation to happen. We see that very much in 3 steps. So we see one that we call mobilize, and it's about making the future real. Getting leaders, especially leaders. It's important. Yes, there's many people in our organization, but the leaders are the ones that are cutting the cake, and we need to get them excited about the future. We need to make that future real, so they can have like personal transformations here, like engineering epiphanies for people to kind of have, okay, I can see this, I have a role to play, we have a role to play here, let's do that. Then the second stage is what we call pioneering, which very much we think that has at the center the idea of building iconic products, services, solutions. So because building a solution, just launching something, doing just like making something, like developing a product and then launching it to market is a process that involves every single part of the organization. So in a way, if you manage to launch a transformative product to the market, you are going to start to kind of get that kind of flywheel of transformation inside it, and we can start having this feeling of what we can do. This is something we are able to kind of we can pull this off, right? And then the third one is basically scaling, which is probably the hardest, which is making that change stick, so the organization starts to understand that this is part of our identity now. So this is the framework that we use as part of transformation, which we believe basically applies very much to climate, and is the one that we've been kind of following, and I can share with you a few examples. On the Mobilize side, this idea of like just creating beautiful versions of the future, creating narratives, is incredibly important. This is part of what IDEO does. We do that almost like as a gym inside the organization, just like thinking about how we rethink the future. I mean, like you can see some of the ideas. We worked on the future automobility 10 years ago, which is still a piece of work that is still very much kind of influential and quoted by many. We've been thinking about, okay, how can we electrify everything? Can we electrify, imagine the fuel stations, like or electric fuel stations today. They're like very much designed on top of the old fuel stations, and could we start reimagining these fuel stations as these electro stations, as places to rest, as places that are telling us something about the future we are creating, okay? That are just places of peace, not places of grease, places of soft materials, places where you can really start kind of touching the good things about of the transformation that we're going through, so just like this kind of inspiring visions is something that is very important to us. And they very much, this is a slide taken from a project that we are running, and they very much start with doing a deep research on what are the trends, what are the areas that are going to be impacting the business. In this case, is an organization that does food, that does is a food manufacturer, and just going and just researching these areas in detail, combining ethnography, so personal interviews with people, getting that emotion from understanding the different sides, and also like what are the big trends, what are the signals that we are seeing, and with that information, with that, I mean, with that perspective, gaining that perspective, incredibly important. Co-creating that with an organization, I think is useless to do this on your own as a provider. It's always much better to do it together with the client that you're working with. Then you start making the future tangible, and very important for leaders. So leaders can really engage in this. This is not an exercise to make something look good, or the like the lobby of the office kind of look better, like just the creation of these futures, the creation of these new products, new services, the different scenarios of how the world could be in the future. They need to become places of interaction and conversation with leaders. So there's those epiphanies that I was talking about, and that really helps make a difference. An example of that is actually work that we can see in hindsight now, because it's work that we did in 2015, like almost 10 years ago, and it's next year is going to be the event. But we created this. We work with IKEA, which has been a client that we've been working with for maybe 15 or 20 years, and we help them create this concept kitchen where it was like the vision of sustainable kitchen in 2025 that would really make the best out of the food, the materials that it uses. It would have a very kind of responsible approach to every process that is there. And here on the top right, and if you're more curious, you can go on to YouTube and take a look at those videos, because they're still there. They're amazing. We designed the first video, almost AI system that would recognize vegetables and would recognize food and would basically tell you, you would pick up something from the fridge or you would pick up something from the shelf, and it would tell you what you can do with that. I mean, something that felt like science fiction in 2015, but now is perfectly possible. You have a video recognizing system, and you have connected with AI. That's going to happen very soon. The next versions of ChatGPT will start being able to kind of navigate visually the world, and they will start being able to tell you what you can do with it, and you can start integrating some of those things inside the house and help us kind of drive more better behaviors. And many other ideas how to create these different kitchen. And IKEA was brave enough to kind of really go for it, and then they launched that they took that to the Salone del Mobile in Milan. They presented it. It had an incredible success, coverage all over the world, and slowly made IKEA into basically becoming almost like a shaper of the future of its kitchens. Kitchens are very important for IKEA because they make 10% of all the revenue IKEA makes, but they make 20% of the profit. There is a huge profit in kitchens. It's a big part of their business. And they were very much receiving the innovation from their suppliers, from Electrolux, from all the people that basically supply their kitchens. And this piece of work help them kind of turn things around and starting to create an agenda of design ahead of them. So a very important piece of work, and it's helped them rethink and launch a whole set of new products that are today are very, very, you might have some of them, and inspired IKEA's suppliers with new kitchens and appliances range. And some of the ideas are, as I say, are just coming through the line 10 years later, which is something that happens often. That was the first, futures, tangible leaders. Second, pioneering, building iconic products. As I say, the unit of transformation is a product, is launching a product or launching a service, And, if you think about creating climate or sustainability transformation, you shouldn't be thinking about just creating a greener or a more sustainable product. We should start with how can we create a better product, and the constraints being that this is something that needs to be better for the world. And this is very much the approach we had when we were given the possibility of working with F-150, the best-selling truck in the world, and creating the electric version of that, which is a project that we are incredibly proud of. And where we needed to go incredibly in detail, or like, okay, how is an electric truck going to make a better truck? Because farmers or the people buying trucks in America, they are not going to buy it because it's green. They're going to buy it only because it's a much more powerful vehicle, and so basically it's just like one part of that was creating was this is like having so many plugs. There's, I think it's like it's 10 or 12 plugs. It's like more plugs than a small apartment. Was an important part of like, okay, how to make it incredibly practical for people, and how can it be adopted? So much so that then there was a big a snowstorm in Texas, and there was a big news that one of the F-150s basically managed to kind of light the whole house for a night. That was basically where there was a blackout. So those are the stories that are able to happen when you've created a great product. Some of that we've done with I don't know if you're familiar with Sage. Is a big accountant software that is out of the UK, very big in Europe with small and medium enterprises, and they came to us asking for, okay, how can you help us design something to hit our ESG goals? And we started kind of learning more about small and medium enterprises, and we said like, okay, well, wouldn't it be better to just design something that will help you hit your business goals as much as your ESG goals? Because if you're just hitting your ESG goals, how much investment there's going to be behind it, how much focus is there going to be from the top management? Let's be honest, we need to find those very precious projects in order to make the best out of the talent and that we have, and the dedication of the people that really care about this, that you need to find those projects that are both helping advance the sustainability agenda and grow the business, because those are the ones that are going to get the money and are going to be invested. And on the back of that project, Sage launched Sage Earth. They did some M&A. They bought another organization that helped them build this product, and this product is now amazing. It's doing incredibly well, and is one of the leading softwares for small and medium enterprises to start measuring their carbon footprint and start thinking about strategies in order to minimize it and to reduce it. So very much thinking about core business and creating better products, not just doing sustainability projects. Life is too short to work on projects that are not strategic for organizations. And third, scale. And scaling is hard because it's very few organizations have scaled really sustainability in this case. And I was just the other day, I was just browsing and I saw that Ocado, Ocado is the biggest online only supermarket, maybe in Europe, certainly in the UK, and they launched these kind of reusable containers for groceries. So basically, just like something like a recap. You're probably familiar with this, but the idea of just like taking that to shopping, and this is an idea that we introduced in 2017. We kind of created these kind of futures of circular economy when we started working with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and we took them to Ocado. We took them to Ocado 7 years before, and because it made a lot of sense. It's much easier to have reusable containers when you do online shopping, because you're already giving back. You're already having that conversation with a driver. You're already giving back some of your bags, so you can give back those containers. It's actually, there is the reverse supply chain is already there. So we thought that made a lot of sense, and it's taken them 7 years. I mean, not that they copied our idea, but it's taken them 7 years to trial that. And it's like, what on earth? Why does it take so long? It's such a small, simple idea. It wouldn't take so much to kind of really pioneer it. And it's just very difficult, And part of the reasons is because it's very hard to make the sustainability team work together with the innovation team. That is a very important part of almost like a requirement that we take on all the projects that we do. We've been working with H&M, for example, to rethink their packaging, rethink their logistics. And it's a requirement that basically those two teams kind of are working together. It's very important that we are not giving up at the first headwind, the first problems that we have. I mean, this is IKEA. IKEA has tried kind of selling secondhand furniture in their stores. You might have seen it. It's never been the most exciting part of the IKEA experience. But they keep trying. I mean, I have to say, one of the few honest organizations that are really kind of investing and thinking about problems in different ways is really IKEA here. And they are, and that's great, because these ideas, then if they find a way of making them successful, they are going to have an incentive to start thinking about improving the quality of their products, so the durability of them are longer. So I really like this idea of okay, what are the trials? What are the products that are going to be good, are going to be incentivizing them to create better business models, right? This is with Ford, translating this brave leadership into structure. Ford decided on the back of the creation of electric vehicles to divide the organization into one that is basically the Ford Model E, which is like the electric version, the electric cars, and the other one, the Ford Blue, which is the combustion engine cars, and run them side by side, because they are two different beasts, and one doesn't need to kind of compromise the success of the other one. I think that is brave in terms of how to think about that. So one can start paying for the success of the other one, hopefully. And then maybe another example of another organization is taking it seriously. We've worked a lot with Logitech. It's really building teams inside the organization, creating expertise in circularity, creating expertise in materials, really kind of investing on attracting the best talent in the market in order to kind of pull that off. Yes, so that is what I wanted to share with you. These are the three the basic principles and the frameworks that we are kind of seeing.
Super nice. No, I think it's also super useful for impact hubs also to understand how to translate that to our clients and how we're working with like IKEA, for example, and we are working with them. It's super interesting because we have been working in a project with them for example, making foam sustainable or increasing food lifetime. So it's kind of like how to bring those principles for this innovations in the project. It's super interesting. But there's something that you mentioned that I think it's super nice, which is this idea of design something that helps hit the business goal, not just the ESG goals, to make it viable for the business to kind of like deliver that. And that comes with another question that I had, and conscious of time, that's kind of like my last question. So then we can see if there is any questions from the people that are here. But having this idea of like designing the something that it's helpful for the business goal and not just for like ESG, just because I need to comply with something. But the business they have been struggling on integrating like sustainability and profitability. So in your experience, do you have any kind of like practical steps that companies should consider to create, for example, a robust climate era strategy that aligns
Yeah.
adaptation, readiness of for these goals with the long-term business success and viability?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and I mean, it reminds me a little bit of to where we were when we started the digital era and when the internet came around, and organizations started by creating a website, but like they thought about digitizing themselves rather than kind of a digital transformation, a way of thinking, of changing their processes, changing their business models deeply. Um, and and I mean, because at the time they thought, okay, well, when I don't know who's old enough here to remember the excuses they had, but it was like, oh, there's not enough people, only young people care about the internet, like very much like sustainability. Only this is not is going to be nice to have. It was a great rejoicement when there was like the big dot-com boom, and all these organizations went bust, right? And obviously, right now, who hasn't? And the biggest organizations in the world are internet era organizations. I mean, with an exception of maybe Apple, that is a digital era organization, but many of the other ones are. And So I think that they're kind of trying to find those excuses, and the websites are the same. The equivalent of the website is basically the net zero plan. I have a net zero plan. So then that's I have fixed my problem. And I think that what we need, the projects that we need to be working on, all organizations have a net zero plan. All organizations have a growth plan. How do you put one on top of the other one? How do you connect that Venn diagram? How can we start? Because without that Venn diagram, there's not going to be sustainable kind of growth. The ideas are not going to be like, with growth organizations, they're going to keep polluting and they're going to have problems. We need to be thinking about, okay, every organization should be asking, what is our portfolio of products that can help us get closer to net zero, that can help us decouple our growth from the material extraction, that are going to help us kind of make the communities we serve, fairer and better. That is the questions that they should be thinking about. And if they don't have a portfolio of products, if they cannot present that portfolio of products in their sustainability report, we should be suspecting that they're not serious about it. I think that's where I see that there's like that overlap between sustainability and innovation or growth is absolutely necessary in order to kind of make progress there. You might be muted, Luis. Again.
Sorry, thanks. But yeah, that's super interesting because that's this conversation of like not just doing things because I need to comply with something or because regulations are telling me, but if my business is actually taking it serious and it's actually wanting to get to these targets, where are the actions and how you can see inside of your own operations, how you can connect all these things. Super interesting. I think that's super like useful for us as well. But there is a question here, and maybe Xenia, can you bring that question to the stage? But Elena asked us about design in the impact experience design, which is using experiential design for impact. Can you comment on any examples on the future roles of experience design to create impact? Do you have something to comment on that? And Elena, if you want to bring more of your question, you can also raise your hand and come to the stage.
Well, I mean, maybe my comment. I think that the experience design, service design, is absolutely integral to what we're talking about here. If you look at the energy sector, it's been a sector that is one of those sectors. I call them the dark corners where design hasn't been able to arrive yet. Like if you think about like the experiences that you have with your energy providers, they're in general, they are like terrible. And as someone that has tried and have, I'm an engineer, I've put solar panels in my house, and it's such an impossible thing to do. It's so hard. I'm getting the money for them. I'm getting the, getting all the permits that you need. It's a colossal kind of act. And so I think there is a huge role for experience design to be applied to incentives, to be applied to to rethink the experience of asking for a loan. So especially in the public sector, there are such underwhelming experiences to be kind of getting money back for, or just getting some of the, like, we had 700 billion euros from the Green Deal that were given to Europe, and we haven't been able to use more than half because of the hurdles of people accessing them. It's like it's a tragedy. It's like such a huge wasted opportunity. And I think that we just need to kind of bring impact, bring experience to those areas in a much more compelling way.
Super, thanks. We have another question from Mohammed from Impact Hub Zanzibar. Do you have examples of applying sustainable design principles to products for the bottom billion?
Yeah, such a good question, Mohammed. And I don't think that, I mean, like the general issues are similar. The affordability is key here, and it's and in order to get the transition, the electrification, the transition right, in order to kind of cope with the challenges that we have in the next 10 years, 10, 15, 20 years, in order to like decarbonize the economy, there are as many jobs that are going to be needed in financial services as with anything else. The idea of actually creating products to help with affordability is incredibly important here. So we need to make sure that the sustainable options, which normally happen to be the best options for the long term, are the best options in the immediate term, in the short term, and the moment of purchase. And that is a huge job, I think, for financial organizations and for people to think about, again, connected to the incentives that we were talking about before. So I feel like that is the most important thing. It's like, if we need to help make the case for solar panels or induction kitchens instead of having, or induction kind of hobs instead of like fire powered or coal powered solutions. It's like, how can we make those things affordable as a starting point? How can we make those solutions resilient? Those ideas, and it's incredible. I mean, we're talking about, I mean, in Indonesia, I was in Indonesia not long ago, and the solutions that they are having in order to, like, for example, swappable batteries for scooters are incredible. So there's a lot of innovation that's coming from there. I think that in the Western world, we are not used to kind of look at the South, the global South for inspiration, but there's a lot that we could bring back here as well. So I don't think that there's a one-way street in any way.
Yeah, no, that's nice. That was going to bring me to the last question before we end, which is like how this can also make better accessibility and for the consumers, how like design and innovation, how do you see that playing a role as like bringing more accessibility to the consumers and not just creating kind of like the best product that is going to be more expensive because it's the best product and only niched to a specific type of consumer that in the end of the day is going to be able to buy that, but actually using design and creating the best product that it's more accessible as well for the people that in the daily basis they cannot choose.
Yeah, I think thinking about accessibility in a wider sense is a very useful way of thinking. I think that I think the digital era, the internet, has appealed to a part of our brain that is very much driven by the short term. And this is like, it's almost like a reduction of human-centric design. Humans are much more than consumers, but we are just addressed by the services that we have as consumers, consumer-centric. It's like, Amazon wants to be the most consumer-centric organization in the world. It's very different to be consumer-centric to be human-centric, where you're thinking about the aspirations, the legacy, the future. I care about so many more things than just having more things, but this is what we've been appealed to. So I think that the effort of creating products that appeal to that kind of medium to long term of aspirations of humans, and help that be affordable, help that be accessible as a starting point, is something I think we have a huge room to think about. And it's a space that I think AI can help us with. For example, I think AI can help compensate our lack of ability to kind of plan long term, to have patience, to have a discipline. If we could start kind of introducing some of those elements, help people make better choices at the moment of purchase between, I don't know, something disposable and something that you're going to keep for a long time. I think that if we have the right business model, I think we can just nudge those decisions in a much better way.
Super nice. Well, Luis, the conversation was super insightful, at least for me, and I hope for the other ones as well. Do you have any final words that you'd like to bring before we close?
No. Well, thank you. Thanks for connecting on a day like this, which is, it's good that we have these conversations to get us distracted from just looking at the news. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. Hopefully, this is the start of more interactions. Please reach out to me, connect me on LinkedIn, or just if you want to collaborate in some ways, please let me know.
Awesome.
Thanks for
Thank
doing.
you so much. And for everyone, we are having a break now, so we have 1 hour break. And right after the break, we're going to have a Proaction Cafe. So come with ideas for us to work on those projects and bring the ideas to discussion with the peers. So Luis, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day and see you around.
See you. Ciao.